Hey everyone, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Modern Merchant Podcast. My name is Austin. I'm your host. And today we have a special guest. This is Dane. He is the co-founder of EcoCart. Dane, thanks for jumping on.
Austin, thanks for having me, man. I'm really excited to be here.
Perfect. And we had a quick little conversation with Jake on your team and we got started, and it was really interesting to know about EcoCart and how you guys fit in the state of helping e-commerce sellers with diminishing the carbon footprint in the world and being on that eco-friendly train right now that a lot of us are on board with. But just for all the listeners listening in today, why don't you give us a quick little background of who EcoCart is and what you guys currently do right now?
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. And I'm definitely excited to be chatting with you and to be listened to by everyone here. So thanks for having me. And in terms of what we do, we are a solution to calculate and offset the carbon footprint of e-commerce purchases. And so we partner directly with e-commerce brands, and not just e-commerce, but retail generally across many different channels to calculate and offset their carbon footprint of their purchases. And we do this in a few ways. Basically, our API gets kind of embedded into the back end of the e-commerce site, for example, through a Shopify app or a BigCommerce app, or we can find some other way of implementing our API into your tech stack generally to ultimately take some data points of your purchases, such as shipping distance, package weight, and product type, run those through our algorithm, and then calculate what the carbon footprint of that purchase was. And then ultimately be able to fund certified carbon offset projects like planting trees, building wind farms, et cetera, based off of that specific carbon footprint, thus making all of your orders carbon neutral. And we do so for today, right around 2,000 companies. And so we're powering about 2,000 companies' sustainability initiatives, making their orders carbon neutral. This includes brands like APL, Adams, BarkBox, Siete Foods, June Shine, and many, many more that we're excited to partner with. So that's kind of a little bit about what we do. Happy to dive into any more of that.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Whenever I think Jake or someone on your team got in contact with my CEO, Travis, and I got looped in, and it was funny, man. I've never really thought about, the carbon footprint, being eco-friendly from like a purchase standpoint, everything that involves the shipping and logistics all the way to getting that to the end customer. We've got a lot of retailers that sell eco-friendly goods, right? Grocery that are just a little bit better for you and your body, bath and body stuff that's not, with all the chemicals in it and things like that. But then that was about the scope of it that we've seen. And then when I saw you guys doing this, like helping at a checkouts, standpoint, and making really a user experience for somebody to be like, I want to make sure, I'm not doing the carbon footprint or, God, I feel like I'm saying this wrong. What's the best way of saying like what I'm doing at this checkout process is what I'm doing? Diminishing carbon.
Offsetting the carbon footprint.
Offsetting the carbon footprint. Okay, perfect. Yeah. See, I'm learning new stuff every day. What was really interesting to me is like, and I have to ask you right out of the gate, it's like, how did this get started? Like, how did you find EcoCart? How was this like, let's make this a real thing? Because I feel like this is so new to me, at least in the e-commerce world.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is. It's something that we are definitely creating a category, and it's really exciting. Just considering the market demand we're seeing. Many both businesses and consumers are very interested in our solution, and it's really great to see just kind of the consumer action that's being taken, as well as merchants choosing to offer this as an option for their customers. And so, yeah, that's, you hit the nail on the head. Now, in terms of how this started, or really, the inception story kind of behind the company and the solution is, I personally, my personal background is, really centered around starting companies that all center around making the world a better place in some way, shape, or form. So that's kind of the common thread among the companies that I've started previously. The most recent company with my current co-founder was an online peer-to-peer rental marketplace business. So think like Airbnb, but for like surfboards, kayaks, snowboards. We started that business because we thought that renting, in contrast to consumption, was a greater benefit for the environment, especially high plastic items like kayaks and surfboards. But right. Exactly. As we scaled, it just became very complicated, very expensive to maintain that sustainability ethos and rigor. And we tried everything. But we tried to buy offsets, try to hire consultants. It was very complicated, very expensive. So that's when we realized there was a problem in the market, and that there had to be a better way. So we sold the company. And then a few years later, kind of rejoined forces and started EcoCart, because that problem always kind of stuck in the back of our mind, that there had to be a better way to deliver a sustainable shopping experience to customers and allow them to have a sustainable shopping experience across many different channels. And then ultimately provide that value to the brand. And so that's when we launched the company we started building the company rather about 2.5, 3 years ago now. And our mission is simple: to make the fight against climate change easy, affordable, and accessible, so everyone can do their part. And here we are now with about 1,500 brands we partner with, right around 2,000 actually now, and growing.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's funny, man. I remember, I mean, a lot of us here being in Jack's Beach, we're surfers. And when you look into what's used to make surfboards, right, it's very toxic to the environment. And just you getting started in that realm and finding it where it's like, let's make this purposeful for everybody. And like, let's make it right there at e-commerce. Because at the end of the day, I mean, gosh, we've been tooting this horn for forever. Everything's going online. Everything is going to buying online, things like that. You know, we help from the standpoint of having flexible fulfillment options. And then you guys make it, you know, from a standpoint of having flexible, like eco-friendly options for shipping. And I think it's cool that it molds together. You know, whenever you're clearly an entrepreneur, right? You started a handful of companies. I know with Travis, our CEO, he always loves to have these types of questions. And so do I, because I kind of am an entrepreneur at heart. What were some like notable inflection points of your journey going from start of EcoCart and to where we're at today? Like anything that was just like, that was a crazy hurdle we got over, or that barrier that we broke through was awesome, or this took us a setback. Like, tell me about some crazy moments that has happened over the past few years.
Oh man, how much time do we have?
Let's just keep going all day.
So many. So yeah, no, absolutely. There's a lot. Both good and both amazing kind of like wins and learning experiences as well. So, I'd say a few things come to mind. I think for us, our journey has been quite accelerated, I'd say. And so, we launched the solution to market available for folks to use about a year and a half ago. And since then I've seen some amazing demand for the solution, and seen, and with that, has popped up, a few competitors in the space as well. So that's been an interesting kind of like thing to kind of navigate. And we definitely have done so gracefully and done so with a lot of efficiency and velocity, and definitely are the number one player in the space in terms of, number of merchants that we have on board, size of merchants, just like breadth and depth of the solution. And so, yeah, we really pride ourselves on that. And I'd say, so that was kind of an, interesting kind of to navigate, considering we were all, from a team perspective, there were 2 or 3 of us, even just 6-7 months ago. And now we're a team of 14 going on 16 to 17 by the end of the year. So we're definitely, there's been some really exciting times and some really, some great learning experiences in just growing a team and growing a solution, and both product and on other functions of the organization that we've had to kind of hone and refine, and I think we're really in a really good place now, and have always been and really going to continue to be, and as we kind of look to continuously evolve and refine and change and move forward. But yeah, I guess in terms of like events, like we raised a seed round of capital in April of this year, which is a really great catalyst, an inflection point for the company, not just from a capital infusion perspective, but also from a kind of a legitimization perspective. We had been a solution that was, I guess largely under the radar for the first few months after we launched. And that was because, we didn't really even know the first thing about marketing. We had to kind of how to learn it over time, and same with sales. So it was definitely a really great learning experience to go from that to where we are now, which we have a very much a kind of firing on all cylinders when it comes down to like marketing and SEO and all these really important things you don't really quite think about in the beginning. So that was really great, and that seed round allowed us to have some great folks involved, both on internal team, right, be able to hire amazing people, but also investors and advisors and folks who are really excited about what we're doing and interested in helping. So that was a fantastic inflection point and kind of catalyst event to so many things within the company so far.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing too that, we see the same thing that we're going through, rounds of capital coming through the door, a lot of new hires, a lot of accelerated growth. I mean, we've had a lot of fun stuff that we've been coming out with. We started with, one application for, dropship retailers, into now we've got 3 different programs, and, going up market with our Flxpoint brand and app. And it's been fun. A lot of the inflection points too. I can go on forever since I was one of the guys from the beginning. And this kind of takes me to, like, we're talking about the company as a whole, but now as from like a data perspective, the product itself. At a core, we're an automation company. We bring in large amounts of data and we automate that from fulfillment to your sales channels, product data, inventory, orders, tracking numbers, invoice reconciliation, like just everything you could think of. And it's a large amount of data for these guys that have hundreds of thousands of SKUs that they're selling online. I'm sure with you guys have to take in a lot of data as well. So what do you guys do from, like, don't give us your secret sauce, but like at the end of the day, you guys are leveraging data and automation, right? To provide this carbon neutral, like, order solution, right? And tell us a little bit how that works kind of in the back end.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of factors that kind of go into play when we're trying to look at how to even calculate the carbon footprint of anything, right? And so I think the first is it's really important to understand that our solution looks at a lot of factors of an order. So like shipping distance, the weight of the actual package itself, the methodology of the method of shipping, like the shipping method itself, the product type, even down to kind of like the materials mix of the product and item itself as well. As well as or ingredients if it's a food product, for example, the packaging. There's so many different factors that kind of go into this process and our calculations that make it so pulling this information is a challenge, and creating a scalable solution is a challenge. So that was kind of the inherent, not necessarily a roadblock, but a hurdle that we had to kind of go. To accomplish early on. And so for us, building a scalable and accurate representation of a calculation from the information that we receive, it was a challenge. So for us, kind of doing that R&D research, as well as really working in kind of a strong data science element to what we do, was really important to us from the beginning. And something that we've really learned over time was something that was becoming very, very much top of mind and important for us as we kind of look to provide a scalable, accurate solution for calculating the carbon footprint of anything. So we rely heavily on our partners for this information. We have a kind of in-depth sort of discovery phase of our partnership that our partners kind of go through if they are interested in doing so, to understand their carbon footprint in a really in-depth way. And that has been, something that's really important to us because, just understanding of a carbon footprint is, like you kind of alluded to and mentioned at the beginning of our call, is very much this kind of esoteric, kind of abstract type of idea that most companies' brands don't have top of mind. And it's something that we are looking to really democratize the understanding of that so that action can be taken. And we kind of automate the end-to-end solution of that through data and through, kind of just automated actions of actually, how we select and vet and assign carbon offset projects based off of various factors. And then allow a merchant and a consumer to understand what their impact is over time. And so the transparency piece as well is important. All of that together is kind of how we've, kind of gone through the ringer of creating a holistic experience for both our merchants and our consumer community.
Yeah, it's funny, man, because that's when you first started, it was like, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, like shipping, where it's going to, what the weight of the product is. I mean, we do the same thing with like dimensional weight and buying shipping labels and things like that. But then you got to think, is it is it being flown across the country? Is it, being driven by truck? Like all of these different ways. And I'm just like, gosh, okay. Oh, it's a cardboard box. It's not a wooden box, or it's not this, it's not that. And there's just so much that goes into that. And we deal with the same thing from a data perspective too. And it's always fun to kind of get that like, I'm starting to see those, not holes, but those barriers that you guys get over. And that's kind of like your bread and butter, your sweet spot. And I love that. And so, let's, I guess, stay on that topic. I had a couple other questions, but this one was this kind of stays on that topic of, I'm a retailer and I'm selling online. And let's say I'm kind of, I'm in that eco-friendly, carbon neutral, type of market. We actually have a really good customer right now, United by Blue. They're in that, relatively, same niche, right? Same kind of go to market. How, like, what do I have to give to you to be able to be like, I want to provide this on my store? Like, is it specific types of data points that I have to give you?
Great point. Great question. So, and good point on United by Blue. They're an awesome brand. I personally love the brand a lot. So, good call out on that front. I think, and to answer your question directly, so what does a partnership look like, right? So we partner with brands just like United by Blue all the time that, and there's a process, right? So there's a technical implementation of our solution to their website, to their e-commerce process or flow, that we handle entirely on our end. So very much a light lift from them to, again, make this as kind of frictionless, as easy of a solution to actually create and spin up as possible. And we do all that work from an integration, technical implementation perspective. Now, the question, I think what you're more alluding to is, what is the information that we need as a solution to actually be able to accurately calculate the carbon footprint? And there are a few layers to that answer. The first is, we are pulling most of the factors that we need to calculate the carbon footprint automatically in the back end of the e-commerce back end, like infrastructure, right? So we are pulling automatically in real time. We are pulling the shipping distance, where it's going to and from, the weight of the package, in some cases the dimension, the product type itself, and then ultimately we have a very robust kind of back end infrastructure and database that helps us understand what is the item that's being purchased and identify whether it's materials mix or packaging or any of these other factors that kind of go into the carbon footprint. And then that ultimately kind of all rolls up into what the calculation outputs. And so at checkout, the customer experience is very much just, here is a dollar amount for the consumer to opt in. Or the brand can also opt to pay for that ultimately will compensate or net out the carbon footprint of that order based off of that specific order. So it's very dynamic and specific based off each individual order and the cart, value and the cart breakdown and composition. So all that together is how we calculate. Now, the other kind of side to that is, where do we get that information? Again, a lot of that is in the back end that we pull from, but there's so much more that goes into it at the beginning of our partnership that we have to fundamentally understand from our partners. And so that's where we have a very in-depth, kind of robust emissions audit process that we go through with some of the merchants on our platform that want to go that route. Some just choose to kind of use our general estimates, and we have amazing general estimates considering the fact that we have so much data from e-com being the number one kind of like e-commerce sustainability provider in the space, and have over 25 million pounds of CO2 offset so far that we can leverage and utilize to kind of fill gaps and voids and what the carbon footprint of a purchase is. But a lot of our brands actually choose to kind of give us this information themselves, because they've either run this from having a consultant on board, or they work directly with us to fulfill that need for them, to kind of go in and ask them tons of questions to understand their carbon footprint for both shipping and manufacturing their items and orders. And we do that work on our end, kind of provide them a report, and then ultimately use those calculations, use those inputs for our calculation over time, so that all the calculations are accurate.
Okay. So, and so really your your work out of the gate is checkout, right? So if I go to someone's website and I'm like, yeah, I want to do this thing. Like I want to mitigate that carbon footprint, and you guys just kind of spin up an algorithm, right? And a calculation based off of what they have in the cart, right? And it's kind of like all the work is done right then and there.
Exactly right. So all that calculation happens instantaneously whenever a consumer is going through and making a purchase.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's some good stuff, and it's funny because you get into like a time framing too, right? You got to work on making sure you get that data quick enough to them and calculating an estimate. I mean, we see that now. We have this concept of rate shopping. So whenever an order comes in and I want to send it to, a fulfillment area that has like the least amount of shipping times or the cheapest shipping cost, it's like you have to instantly ping UPS, FedEx, USPS, like over their APIs, or, you have to figure out exactly where it's coming from, where it's going to, and then try to make a business decision off of that or an intelligent decision off of that, all in a reasonable time frame. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to shipping, it's like we're competing with Amazon, next day. Like at the end of the day, like everybody's competing with Amazon in their next day shipping in this world, regardless if you're selling on Amazon or you're selling on your website. So always doing that weird calculation on the checkout process and like fulfillment and trying to get that down from like a time standpoint is key and big for a lot of online sellers. So it's cool. That's great to know the back end of things and understanding the data, how you guys work from a data perspective, automating that. I love how you guys kind of take on the lift for your customers. I know from like a SaaS standpoint, a lot of people, we kind of try to teach them how to do it. And then we go from there. There's a lot of companies that's like, you buy their service and here's support docs. Godspeed, good luck, instead of someone like yourself or like us taking it from an implementation standpoint. So one question that I wanted to ask as well, and you alluded to it a little bit earlier on the call, was, if I'm an e-commerce store and I want to leverage you guys, is there a specific website I need to be on? You guys said Shopify and BigCommerce. Is there anything else that you work with?
Yeah. So it's a great question. So we have an out-of-the-box solution, an app that you can install directly from the Shopify and BigCommerce app marketplace. We also do, custom integrations all the time, whether you're on Wix or Squarespace or WooCommerce or Magento, Salesforce Cloud, all of these platforms we integrate into. And we also have a general API that we can implement into any, custom built e-commerce platform as well. So the opportunities are endless no matter what platform you're on. We have a solution for you.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's funny going between the, do we standardize an app versus, building one-off apps or building a private apps?
Yeah.
Magento, God, I could talk about Magento for forever about how hard of an integration that is. Okay. Same with WooCommerce, can be a little bit that way, but, Shopify and BigCommerce are setting the standard for sure. One thing that I did notice, and I was just jumping around your website, because I'm just curious. I have no idea what you guys did when I first came across you. But what was awesome was, right out of the gate, you have impact, like right there on the front of your website. And, being in the market that you are, like, that's the number one thing. We're trying to make an impact on, the earth that all of us live on. Just tell me about what you guys are doing from like a project standpoint. Like every time I hover over these images, like you've got all of these different projects you guys are working on, like maybe name a couple, maybe some cool stories that, what you guys are doing right now from an impact standpoint.
For sure. It's an awesome question. So we work with a variety of projects. And so basically, for everyone who's listening is kind of context, we are purchasing certified carbon offsets to compensate for or offset the carbon footprint of the purchase. What that means is a carbon offset is just basically a measurable reduction of CO2 from the atmosphere, and it comes in the form of projects. These projects can be planting trees, they can be building wind farms, sustainable agriculture, methane capture. There's a whole host of variety of projects, project types and categories that can exist and that we work with. So what we've done is basically looked at the universe of carbon offset projects, all the projects that are certified by one of the major carbon standards or bodies, and then ultimately vetted these projects and kind of curated a portfolio of about 25 to 30 projects that any merchant can actually choose and select. And so each project has its own unique story associated with it, from kind of a marketing, branding, storytelling perspective, as well as like a category and impact and geography perspective that really can work well into kind of the brand's narrative and the brand's kind of core thesis or ethos rather. So we have basically done the work to ultimately curate this portfolio that is, the most highly vetted, verified, and ultimately impactful carbon offset projects we could find that the brand can ultimately choose. So that's kind of what we've done in the back, in sort of the on the legwork we've put in the background. Now, each of those have, again, like a unique story. And so whether that's, protecting an endangered species of animal because we're protecting their habitat, or it's creating local jobs in a developing nation, all of our projects have a very strong story associated with it and have a co-benefit that kind of exists for the local community in some way, shape, or form. And that's one of the biggest things that we try to focus on, in addition to the absolute impact of the project itself and what it's doing in terms of carbon sequestration or removal, to ultimately come up with a storytelling mechanism for the brand to use. And so that's kind of that's our solution, what we provide, and what we, again, give the option to the merchant to do.
So if I'm one of these customers and I'm utilizing you guys, on my website, I can actually choose the project that like I'm paying for, or my customers are paying for.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly right.
That's cool. So they can like almost fit it into like whatever thing that they do specifically. Like if I'm selling something, I don't even know, I'm going to mess this up. If I'm selling something that's like saving the environment, it's like I can say every purchase I'm getting associated with this project that are planting trees, right? Something like that.
Exactly right. Yep.
That's awesome. That's so cool. And you guys make it so personable in that sense. I feel like a lot of people could come into this space and try to disrupt, what you guys are doing. Like you said, you've got just random competitors popping up, and either they're doing it the wrong way, or they're doing it for the cheap buck, right? Or they're just doing it kind of like, they're not getting as personal as you guys are. And that's super cool. I really like that. What's a shout out project? What's your favorite? Or yeah. Maybe not your favorite. I don't want to. Yeah. What's a really cool? What's a really cool one?
Can't pick favorites. One of the ones that's kind of very close to my heart, I would say, is we have a project based in Cambodia where we're actually building water purifiers for local Cambodians. And at first, it may seem like, oh well, how is that a carbon offset project? How is that helping the environment? Essentially, the reason for that, and it's really cool because the alternative to purifying drinking water for local Cambodians in some places of kind of the market we're serving is to boil that water over a wood burning stove, and so to purify it. And so what this project aims to do is provide a purifier to eliminate that entire process. Now, what that elimination does is take out not just the actual act of the carbon emissions from burning wood, but also cutting down the trees from the very beginning. And so it kind of eliminates the need for all of that, which ultimately really, really helps the environment and also helps the local community. And so that's one of my favorite projects because of that story.
No, that's cool. That's a great story. I think I just popped it up right here.
Yeah,
I was about to say, what's one way would be cool for me. I love the I don't know. I like the forest protection. That's kind of like my big thing is protecting the forest and things like that, because like we live in an area, we live in Jacksonville, we're here in Jacksonville, Florida. And we're like one of the biggest cities, like landmass wise. And everywhere you go, you'll just see another random forest just getting knocked out for another set of apartments, because we need more apartment complexes. And I love that specific forest one. I actually read the West Springfield forest protection one in Springfield. It was a good little read as well. Cool. And you know what, one quick question, just because we got just a little bit of time left, that I always like to ask, because I mean, let's be honest, we had a crazy year and a half. I bet you guys had some interesting stuff in regards to the global pandemic. How was that like with you guys? I know being in software with us, it was simple in the sense of we're in e-commerce. People need e-commerce. E-commerce was the future. It just got accelerated now, and people need software like us. We can work remote. I just need a computer and we're good to go. But like with your specific project and where you guys are at in the niche, I mean, how was the global pandemic and how that panned out for you guys as a company?
Yeah, it's an awesome question. So there's a few different lenses you can kind of look at that through. I'd say overwhelmingly for us, considering we are a predominantly e-commerce solution, e-commerce obviously had a massive boom, and it received some amazing tailwinds because of the pandemic. And we, as a solution, as a company, benefited from that, right? So we had a lot of what was, a kind of and by some kind of like measurements, you know, I think the kind of the latest number that I remember seeing is kind of e-commerce adoption accelerated 5 whole years in the matter of just a few months. And so that obviously does a lot of good for the e-commerce industry, right? And so we are very much in that world. And so that was amazing for us. I'd say, you know, challenging obviously for a lot of different reasons. But from a kind of a team perspective and kind of making, you know, from a collaboration and kind of like productivity perspective, it was definitely something that we kind of came to get in the groove on, and ultimately found some really great success. But I'd say, you know, for us, just being in the e-commerce space, that was a really great plus for us. And you know, our work is, I'd say, because of that reason, even more important, because so much e-commerce, so much like last mile delivery, for example, happens now more so than it did pre-pandemic. And that is much more top of mind for consumers. So all of that together really kind of work into the fact that I think, you know, our solution, our company, where we are in the market, was quite benefited from the pandemic in a lot of ways, and you know, very, very grateful for that. You know, the sort of side, you know, benefits of a tragic really a tragic situation overall.
Yeah, and usually kind of like right at the end, I like to know what's coming up new. I noticed this on the site. You guys are doing like a Google Chrome extension, so like helping out consumers as well. How's that going?
Yeah, it's an awesome question. So we do have a consumer part of our business where any consumer can actually install our browser extension into their browser, and it operates in the same way, and that it calculates and then offsets the carbon footprint of their purchases if you're shopping on one of our brand partner websites. And so we do a lot with our consumers as well to kind of, you know, provide them a solution and allow them to offset their carbon footprint at their favorite places across the internet. And it's a little bit of a different model in terms of kind of who's actually paying. It's totally free for the consumer. And so, you know, there's no cost at all to click a button and you offset the carbon footprint of your order. Very much kind of like Honey, where you click a button, like activate the extension, and then ultimately you'll have a carbon neutral order. And so, yeah, that's pretty much the solution on that side. And we're really excited about, again, the kind of the consumer sentiment and demand that we're seeing over there, and how it all kind of works into the overall company strategy. That's cool.
That's a cool little shift. I feel like those, I mean, I'm looking at my Google Chrome right now. I have so many extensions. Yeah. I have to. It's like we have to have that. It just helps us get through the day. And so many people are just realizing like the gold that comes around having a Google Chrome extension. Honey was a good example, right? I remember when coupons wasn't ever a thing, and now you can just automatically find us. Cool. Hey, Dane, thanks for coming on, man. It was a great conversation. I feel like I learned a lot, and a lot of people learned a lot on this episode when they, give a listen to us. Real quick before we jump, you know, if I'm an e-commerce seller, right, and I want to start, you know, offsetting the carbon footprint in this world, you know, what's your pitch? What's a quick little one-liner, one little pitch to get me to work with you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So EcoCart is absolutely the best way, the easiest, simplest, and really most shortest kind of shortest path to becoming a sustainable brand, right? Working sustainability into the brand narrative, into the brand story, and offering your consumers a sustainable or a sustainable shopping experience by offering them a carbon neutral order at checkout or a carbon neutral option at checkout. And, you know, that again leads to some amazing benefits. So customer loyalty, your customers, you know, for sure want to do this, right? And so it's a matter of kind of giving them that platform to do so, boost customer loyalty, boost retention over time, and, you know, building a long-term relationship, but also cart conversion boost. And so our brands see on average about a 14% boost in cart conversion as a direct result of using our solution. So all that together make it a really, you know, compelling kind of solution. And on top of that, there's actually no cost to the brand at all. And so all that together makes it a quite a compelling solution for our brands.
Yeah. No, that sounds good. if I had a brand, if I was selling online, which don't get me wrong, I think I've tried in the past and failed miserably, but I would definitely check you guys out. So everybody, obviously jumping on here to the episode, go check out EcoCarts, ecocart.io, not .com. I've made that mistake a few times. So go give them a check out. Dane, thanks again for jumping on, man. A lot of great information coming your way. And everybody out there listening to Modern Merchant, obviously, if you're listening to us or watching us on YouTube, we're still on Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, everywhere else. We're going to be posting this, going on the newsletter and on the blog, as well as on the Flxpoint website. Dane, thanks again for jumping on, my man.
Thanks so much, Austin.
All right. Have a good one.
Cheers.